Hello, and welcome to the Psychic Stories podcast, encouraging conversations about mental health. Today I'm speaking to Lauren Quigley. Lauren is a competitive swimmer who has represented Great Britain at the World Championships and England at the Commonwealth Games, winning 3 silver medals. Lauren now runs a mentoring organisation called Quigley Sport to mentor the next generation of athletes. Hello, Lauren.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
I think I mentioned before that you are the most decorated person we've ever had on the podcast.
Yeah, that's a really nice thing to hear. I'm sure you've had some people with a lot more interesting stories though, but I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much. And the goal of today is to have an open and honest conversation about your mental health journey, to get some insight into the tools and techniques that have helped you and are available and accessible to other people. And by discussing your journey, we hope to share and normalize conversations about mental health, as often people are not alone in these experiences. So as a decorated competitive swimmer, and I assume as well, starting from a very young age, would love to hear your mental health story.
Yeah, no, well, let's get started then.
Let's get deep.
Yeah, let's go for it. So a little bit of background first about why I went into swimming. My auntie swam at the Olympics in 1984, and my mum swam for Great Britain. She was also a backstroker. A little bit further down the line, I actually won trophies with her name on, and then I obviously had won them and my name was on them as well, which was pretty special.
Oh, wow.
But rewinding back to the start, my mum did not want me to swim at all, and that's because swimming is a tough sport, a really tough sport. She'd done it. She's obviously done it with her sisters as well, and she knew that it was a lot of work for not the greatest reward, I'd say. There's probably better sports to go into for a lot bigger rewards. So she wanted me to obviously learn to swim, and then from there go into something different. And I definitely understand that, but when you're younger, you don't understand that.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. I learned to swim. I used to walk up and down poolside with my mum's coach and watch her swim, and just fell in love with it and wanted to do it, and that's all I wanted to do.
So it's always been in your blood, and I assume as well in your genes as well, to be able to swim. But from my very layman's understanding of people who were swimming competitively, let's say at school or university or whatever, it's a rigorous schedule, and it starts from when, I'm not sure how old were you when you started? 10, 11, 12 kind of?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I learned from very, very young, and then I started properly training when I was about maybe 9 or 10. Yeah.
It's a hard schedule for a 10-year-old.
It is, but then again, I was very lucky. I had my brother who swam as well. He's my best friend, and we're very close, and that's amazing. And, I couldn't have done most of the stuff that I did without him being there. Yeah. But it is a tough schedule, but I was very lucky because my mum had done it, she knew what I should be doing or maybe what I didn't need to do. So the other kids that parents maybe didn't come from a swimming background the coach would say they need to be in this many times a week and they've got to do all these mornings.
Right.
Whereas my mum was like, you're not doing those mornings yet. You don't need to be doing that. And sort of held me back to push me forwards in a way.
Okay.
And I didn't understand that at first. I just wanted to swim, and all my friends were doing all the sessions and I wasn't. And so I used to say, Mum, I really want to go in the morning. Why can't I go? And she'd say, no, sleep, rest, just enjoy it. And then evidently then later on in life at 16, 17, when it's a crucial time for a lot of swimmers to go, do I want to do it? I'm not sure. All the people that were doing all those sessions quit and hated it. Really? And I was still going then for years later. So it's just that idea of burnout. But I was very, very lucky in certain respects. And, there's positives and negatives to everything. Obviously, Mum knew a lot about swimming. So if I didn't have a great race or something like that, she'd know why. And she'd be like, oh, your third turn wasn't great, or you could do better off here, not in a negative way, in a positive way, trying to help. And sometimes that was tough because I just wanted Mum sometimes to not know anything about it, so that my coach could be my coach and say that, and she could just go, well done.
And be your mum, right? Just be your mum.
exactly. And you know, naturally she just wanted to help. She's the most supportive mum in the world. I could not have a better mum. You know, she's absolutely amazing, and I was really lucky to have had her, and again would not have done anything anywhere near what I did without her. But yeah, so the start was difficult because I loved it and I wasn't able to do everything. But then later on in life, it became evident of why that was the case.
And it's interesting because I would have assumed that like swimming was quite a kind of like a solitary sport, kind of a lonely sport. And actually, you know, how you said it, like if your interest is that and all your friends were there and you weren't there, that actually it works the other way around, doesn't it? Like actually your social group was in the pool at 5 a.m. So actually that's where you wanted to be, but you were told that actually that might not be the wisest way to kind of approach it. And I mean, a question that springs to mind, I mean, completely off topic of mental health, but why are they putting kids into the pool at 5 o'clock in the morning at age 10 if it's not the wisest thing to do?
It's a very good question.
I think burnout at 16 sounds pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a time when we were swimming, and luckily we loved it, because I always say if you don't love it, then it's going to be impossible, because I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning. We were swimming for 2 hours in the morning, off to school all day, and then back to the pool after for 2 more hours. And then you've got to fit, you know, your schoolwork and nutrition and everything around that in there. So at a young age, it's really tough. And so you're right. Why are, you know, kids that don't necessarily need to be in at that time in the morning, that at that age, doing it? And it's a very good question. And I think coaches just really want their swimmers to swim fast. And so they just think, a lot of them think, right, let's get them in as much as we can and they'll be brilliant. And that's fantastic for the kids at that age, because they win, and they, you know, a lot of parents who have kids that don't win at that age say, oh, my kid's not winning, but they're too tired to do all the sessions. And I say that's great for them, but it'll be interesting to see if they're still at the top when they get older. It's not about now, it's about them enjoying it, the journey, and getting through and loving it, and then you know, doing all the sessions when it's right to, and it's appropriate, and winning when they're older, you know, in senior level. So it's a very good question.
And it's about being a kid as well, right? Because I mean, perhaps you can give some insight in not from your own perspective, because it sounds like you did a very different approach, maybe a wiser approach, but like, I mean, surely some of these kids came out with some mental health challenges of themselves, like, you know, around, I don't know, confidence, around the kind of extreme competition. Like that's a lot to take on at the very changeable age up until 16. And, you know, swimming, I think, you know, much the same, perhaps with gymnastics, it's a sport which focuses on the young age. And then there's a lot of questions about what next afterwards. And, you know, at the age of, you know, like mid-20s, like that's a big question for anyone. That was, I mean, I'm 35, and that's still a big bloody question. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely.
How do you adjust, and how do you cope? And, you know, with these, you know, with a mindset that you've been up since 5 o'clock, you're burnt out. Like, how does a kid process that?
I mean, that's again, another great question. And it's so prevalent right now, how important mental health is in sport, and there are people trying to make big moves in it, because, you know, when I even literally a few years ago when I was going through it, it was not talked about enough. I went through a really tough 2016, which I'm sure we'll touch on, and I didn't let anything out. No one knew what I was going through in 2016. Right?
Not even your coach.
Not even my coach, no. And so, you know, and I had the support. I had the support of my family, friends, an amazing circle around me, and still really struggled. So for children and the teenage years, like you said, swimming is a young sport. It's like gymnastics. And I retired. I'm retired. I'm 25. You know, it's like, doesn't make sense, but that's, you know, swimming is a young sport, and you start young, and so you're spending a lot of your years when you're supposed to be developing and learning, trying to be mature and make the right decisions at an age that it's really difficult. And you know, it's I always say, when I made teens, it matures you big time, really matures you, but in some ways it keeps you a child as well, really. Swimming is interesting in the fact that you're so reliant on a coach. You have to have your coach there all the time. All your decisions are run by your coach. And I think it can become a problem because some coaches want their swimmers to be so reliant on them as well. And you can almost get brainwashed sometimes when you're so reliant on coaches. And I've only since I've stepped out, I went to Lanzarote for a couple of years, and I was training with some triathletes, you know, and we were running camps out there and stuff like that. And triathlon is a lot more, you have a lot more freedom. You're not so reliant on the coach. And it really opened my eyes to, wow, you really are a child in the sport of swimming. And you do become reliant. And which is why I think mental health in swimming is such a big issue for a lot of people. Because when they're forced to try and make decisions on their own, it's really difficult because you're so used to just being told what to do and you're not really having to think for yourself. And then when things go wrong, you're having to think for yourself and you're not quite sure what to do or who to talk to or anything like that. So it's a sport where, yes, it's a young sport and it's really difficult to find what the right way to approach it is without, you know, hindering performance or a relationship that someone has with a coach. But at the same time, it's where does performance lie with mental health? Mental health should be way more important. And if your mental health is right, your performance will probably come.
That's what I was kind of thinking about. Like, you would assume that, you know, when you have a positive, you know, kind of well-being or mental health, you're more confident, like you're more able to solve those problems. You're not as reliant. But it seems like that's not necessarily the case, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult subject for a lot of people, and it's really hard to navigate the whole mental health thing to do with sport. My dad always used to say to me, a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer. As simple as that. And, you know, I know it's not that simple just to be happy, but it is so important. And any young swimmers that come to me now or young athletes that say, you know, what one piece of advice or, you know, what's the key? Cliche, enjoy it, be happy. And I hate that it is a cliche because it's so important that people almost just go, yeah, enjoy it, whatever. Yeah. And I had this conversation with my brother Grant, who we were saying, if we could go back and say one thing to ourselves, it would be enjoy it. But if you went back to ourselves at that age or anyone that age and you say enjoy it, you go, yeah, whatever, you know, you don't really take it into account or consider it. You just think, I'm just going to get on with it. I am enjoying it, but really enjoy it because it's a journey that, if you don't enjoy it, it will be almost impossible. I
suppose the question is like I said, like you think you enjoy it, but how do you enjoy it? Like in the context of all those external pressures and conditions, like did you, you know, and perhaps if we go on with your journey as well, because I'd love to understand when we come to it, you talk about in 2016 when you did struggle. Like I would have assumed in 2016 that like in the coaching profession, like mental health would be something high on their agenda, but it seems maybe that it perhaps wasn't.
Yes. So with my journey, as a young swimmer, I was good. Like I was winning things in my region and counties and got to nationals and I'd get some medals and stuff like that. And everything was great. I had a great team. I was at Manchester Aquatics for 9 years. That was my team. Fantastic group of people. We had a couple of different coaches. I must say I started with Saracens. The head coach there, Kevin Nuttall, he taught me to swim. And he was there all the way through my career and supported me no matter what. And he was fantastic. You know, there's a few people that stick out for me. And in so then yes. Yeah. So I then was at Manchester and had a great junior career. You know, wasn't winning everything, but I was just medaling and breaking some records and stuff, and it was really good. And I trained really hard, and I was successful, trained really hard, was successful, and that was it. So I just thought, well, if I train hard, I'll be successful. So I moved to Stockport and to start my senior program to try and transition from junior to senior swimming and try and make the British team for senior. And it was great. I had a great team there as well, and it was all going really well. Good group of people. I wasn't far from home, and things were going fantastic. And I went to the World Championships in Barcelona. Very nervous. Was starstruck by my own teammates, never mind everyone else there.
And how old were you then?
I was. Oh, good question. I think I was 17.
I mean, that's a lot to be on the international stage at 17, like surrounded by like you said, starstruck with people who you probably like wanted to emulate.
Of course, yeah, and you've got the whole complexity of funding and who gets funding and who doesn't, and that's another pressure for a lot of people. And so, you know, there's a lot riding on your races. One race it decides whether you're going to get funded or not for the next year. Okay. So obviously there's a lot of pressure building, and I learned a lot in Barcelona. I then had another season. It was the Commonwealth Games the next year, and all this time I know I had this conversation on the Parity Festival about breaking the minute. And this was that time. So then I went for the Commonwealth Games trials and was trying to break 1 minute for 100 meters backstroke and went 1:01. And I just thought, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. But I carried on, trained really hard, you know, had a good Commonwealth Games. I got 3 silver medals and I was really happy with it.
That's amazing. But also, just going back to the minute, like, you know, I know for our listeners that we probably don't have many competitive swimmers on there, maybe some kind of amateur swimmers, but I mean, to do that in a minute is, I mean, frankly, quite staggering. I'm not sure I could jog that. That's really fast, right?
I think you could jog it for sure, but fast. It was a big goal of mine for a long time. Only 3 other British females had done it before, so I was trying to be the 4th to do it. And I danced around a minute point for 5 years before I broke it. And again, that was something that I changed in my mental state and how I looked at things, which was one of the coping mechanisms for the mental health side of things. It was only then when I broke the minute, and the week I broke it I broke it 3 times after that. But that didn't come at the Commonwealth Games. So at the Commonwealth Games, I still did a minute point, which was fine.
But you still did very well there, didn't you?
Yeah. So it was good. Yeah, it was good competition. There was a few issues where people weren't necessarily happy with how I'd raced, even though I felt I'd raced really well. And that was sort of a kick-off for some mental health struggles the following year, just because I've never believed in myself through my whole career. I was never one that really believed in myself. It took a lot for me to be happy with some of my performances, or most of my performances. I was never the most confident. Even though in the call room before we walked out to races, I was the one that was laughing and joking and stuff like that. Deep down, you know, I was never fully like, yeah, you can do this. You know, I never really had that belief. And
did you know that at the time?
I think I was definitely aware of it, but I also pushed it away a bit and I just trained and just did my thing. And if I did well, it was almost like, oh, right. Like you've done well there, but maybe that's just a fluke. You know,
see.
Never a full belief. I didn't like to set goals because in case I failed. And it's only recently that I've thought, why was that? You know, I've really thought about it since I finished. And I think a lot of the time I didn't swim for myself. I swam for those around me and to make everyone around me proud more than myself, which is not the route you should be going down if you're going to be doing something. So
it was a lot around the external validation that you get as a result of doing well.
Yes. And it's that, you know, setting goals, it's that fear of failure. It's you're setting yourself up to be, you know, to fail basically, and for everyone around me to not be proud of what I've done and to let everyone down. And that drove a lot of my swimming career.
Which actually is very negative, right? It's a negative motivation.
Very negative. Yeah, very negative. It's not a place you want to be. And obviously I didn't realise that at the time, but that was, you know, my motivation really. And so at the Commonwealth Games, and there were some people that I posted on social media that I was really happy with my 3 silver medals. And I had someone contact me and say, take it down, because you should not be proud of that. You should not be showing people that is what you're happy with.
Really?
And so that made me go, oh gosh, right. It was quite a big figure in my career. And I thought, oh, right, okay. So that really affected me. And I came home and the neighbours behind had put up a big flag and they'd all signed it and they really wanted to celebrate it and put my medal on. And I didn't celebrate it at all.
Because this person had dampened your... So it was that element of external validation again. That person who was a big figure in your life or in your how you thought was like, that's not the way it should be. Even though actually you should have been proud of what you achieved, because it was amazing. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you. So yeah, and it was really, I look back and it must have been a really sad time for not just me, but for my friends and my family who wanted to celebrate, and I just was not having it. I was like, yeah, it's all right, but it's not good enough. And now I think, gosh, I should have celebrated that. You know, that was really good, Lauren. Well done.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe it to the point where not long ago even, I had to write down my achievements, and I wrote them down and gave them to this person, and they said, how did that make you feel writing those down? And I said, it feels like I'm writing them down for someone else, not for myself. You know, it feels like that's not me. I didn't do that. There's no way I could have done that. And so anyway, yeah, I didn't celebrate. And then it went into 2015. And even though that had happened, I had a really good training year. Trained really hard that year. Not that I didn't train really hard any other year, but that was just the year that really stood out. And I swam really well. I went to the World Championships in Kazan and broke the minute on the 100 back, which was amazing. And I also did it on, it was a very big day for me because I did it on the anniversary of my uncle that had passed away about 10 years ago. But he was a massive figure in all of my family's life. We talk about him all the time still, you know. He was really supportive and just amazing, you know, and it really meant something that I touched the wall, I saw 59, it was on that day, you know, it was just massive. Made the final for the World Champs. And this, no, sorry, go on.
I was just to say, so, but at that point, like, you hit that wall, you saw 59, and like, whilst you were swimming, did you believe in yourself?
Yeah, so I was stood in the core room just before we were about to walk out, and I'd done 5 years of tug of war with a minute point, and I thought the coach that I had on the team wasn't my home coach. It was a different coach on the team, and he just said, just go out and have fun. Don't think about the minute.
Enjoy it.
About it. Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Yeah. And so I was stood there and I thought, you know, it's really funny because when you watch on TV, you watch the people walk out for their races at the World Championships final, you know, you think they're like headphones on, like, you know, really, really focused, thinking about what they should be, you know, if you could film the core room, I'm not saying every time, but we were dancing around. We could hear the music going on in the stadium, you know, and I'm there dancing away. I've got Missy Franklin, Emily Seaborn, like these massive names. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to go out and have fun. I should be having the time of my life right now. And yes, okay. To my coaches, I was very focused. But in my mind, I said, I don't care if I break the minute. Let's just see what you can do. Just focus on the process. Focus on a great start. You know, this many strokes to 25 meters. Try and hold this rate to 50. Get a good turn in. And it was actually focusing on the process down the second length. If you could have filmed if someone was filming me, they'd have seen I had a big smile on my face in the middle of this race, because I just knew I've done it. I've done it. I've got to have done it, because this, you know, I'd focused on nothing. I hadn't focused once on the minute. I just focused on the process, and then the goal came, and I touched the wall, and I knew I'd done it because there was only 59s on the board. I think I came second in the semi-final, and the other girls were still swimming, so I knew that I must have done it. And it was just a flip in stop focusing so much on the outcome, just focus on the process, and the outcome will come.
But is it also like, it seemed like there was a shift in your thoughts from around, let's not necessarily do it for other people, you've got this.
Yes.
Like, Lauren, I've got this. Like, you know, and in some respects, it's almost like, despite all your years of coaching and all that kind of specialism and expertise there, like, actually in that moment, you were the greatest coach you could ever have, because you knew exactly what you needed to do. And you say, I can do this. Yes,
definitely. You know, the self-belief, the enjoying it. You know, I was enjoying it. I was dancing to whatever it was in the call room with these girls that, you know, I'd watched on TV. These guys were phenomenal athletes. You know, it's surreal. Even now still, I just think, wow, you know, that I was in that call room with them. And so I had a fantastic 2015. Again, I'd raced that night though, broke the minute, and this person again wasn't good enough, even though I'd got into the final.
And so, just to clarify, obviously not willing to name or anything, is this someone that's close to you? Is it someone you respect, or someone that's distant but very respected in your field?
No, close, you know, and someone you'd want to be proud of you. It's someone that you'd want to be proud of you. And so, I just, again, it knocked me. I had a great week, but we had a couple of weeks off then the following year, 2016. So we were going to be training for the Olympics the next year. And, you know, I was the fastest in Great Britain at the time, female. So I was due to go to the Olympics. And so it was an interesting end to 2015, because it was the fastest season I've ever done. I'd broken the minute, which was huge. I'd had a great time. I'd represented Great Britain again, and I didn't celebrate because of, you know, one person. And I let that affect me. And, you know, it affected me so much because of the year before and that year, that going into 2016, things just got worse. And so I had 2 weeks off, went back for the next season. And just from the start, it was just sort of a mental battering, really. Not just for me, you know, for some of the team, it was really difficult. And it was just a year where I trained hard, but my heart wasn't in it. And
can you pinpoint that person saying that thing was the kind of the start of that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was definitely. I mean, it probably started really in 2014 after the Commonwealth Games, and not celebrating that achievement.
But that's an incredibly powerful message, right? Like, we've got to, no matter how high up you are in society and whatever you're doing, like, what you say to the either younger generation or to your peers really can matter. And you don't know how people are going to respond or be affected by that. And actually, like, if we are going to communicate, we've got to try and communicate positively to people to support to go on and do even greater things, right? Rather than, frankly, knocking them down.
Yeah, no, definitely. And in sport, it's really tough, because you have all these relationships with your teammates, support staff, coaches, you know, your parents at home, if you're with them, or whoever you live with. And it's about getting the relationship right and knowing how the athlete in the middle ticks and the right way for that athlete to achieve the best that they can. And so it's getting to know the athlete and you know, doing the right thing for that person. And so, it stems from a couple of years beforehand, and things just got worse 2016. And I actually typed something on my laptop in January. The Olympic trials were in the April. I'd spent months and months with people from all over, because one of the great things about sport is you make friends all over the world, and it's, you know, it's a real privilege to have that. It really is. And I wrote something on my laptop. People through all the year, was not even just then, from primary school when London got the Olympics. I was definitely a bit too young for those, but everyone always used to say to me, you know, you're going to go to the Olympics, you're going to be an Olympian, you're going to, you know, follow your auntie's footsteps. You know, I got
that's
that
big
for
messages,
years.
isn't it? That's big
From
messages.
primary school, yeah, massive. And I'd love to have gone to the Olympics. And so I wrote on my laptop in January that I hated swimming. I wish I was nothing to do with it. I just need to get away from it. I don't want to go to the Olympics. I don't want to make the team. I'm not going to make the team. I'm going to fail. And just really brutally honest, just a paragraph. I've still got it. I found it a few months ago, which was interesting to read through. And I wrote it because I knew the trials were coming up in April. And I sort of did it in a way of, to get my emotions out, because I wasn't talking to anyone. Yeah. If anyone had seen me in that year, they would have thought, oh, it's just Lauren. She's just cracking on. She's the jokey one that makes everyone laugh. You know, I was the oldest one on the team out of the girls, and we had a fantastic girls squad. And, you know, I always wanted to look after the girls, really. I always take that role on, and, you know, I want them to do amazing. And so, you know, I kept my stuff in and just wanted to be the laughy, jokey, supportive, motivational person. And so I kept it all in. So it was a way for me to get stuff out of my head, I think, down. And also a way for almost, it's interesting, it's a way for when I knew I wasn't going to make it, for me to go, this isn't because I've just had a bad swim today. This is how I felt in January, and I knew then I wasn't going to make it. And it was just, it's interesting I did it, you know, because people don't normally do that, obviously, but I just wanted to get something down to go, yeah, I've been struggling for ages. You know, this is not just a one day thing.
But that's a massive step in itself, isn't it? Like putting pen to paper. And you know, people talk a lot about in the mental health space about the impact of journaling, which is basically, you know, putting pen to paper and writing about how you're feeling. Like there's something very, very powerful about it. And even if it is negative, and I, you know, I've got not a diary, but kind of like a little thought book that I did when I was, you know, struggling a few years ago. When you do open it up again, you really do get a snapshot of how you were feeling at the time. And I would assume now that reading it now, you were thinking, actually, that's how I was feeling then, but there's been an incredible journey since then to how I am today. And in some respects, when you do write those very honest, brutally honest, you know, very, very dark thoughts and thoughts that are contradictory to what everyone else thinks, it's often the start of a much more positive process. So going from being motivated by negative things to something where actually you're going inside, you're thinking about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and trying to motivate yourself positively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And, you know, it was a very interesting time. I look back now, like you've just said, and I think, how did I get through that?
Yeah.
Because I was really down, and, you know, we were doing 10 swim sessions a week, and we were doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday mornings, and Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday nights, plus
that's a lot of swimming.
Plus 3 gyms, a yoga. You know, we were in there a lot. We were in there a hell of a lot.
That's the hard thing for me to understand as well, is like what you wrote down could be translated as I can't get out of bed.
Yes.
Yet you were more than getting out of bed. Like, yeah. You know, that is an insane schedule for anyone in a week, right? You were still going. There was something still pushing you.
Mm-hmm. And I look back and I think I was getting out of bed, you're right, but I wasn't living. I didn't have a life outside of swimming. Swimming was it. And so I'd swim, I'd come back, I'd be in my room, I'd be in bed. I'd go down to eat, come back up, be in bed, go to training. I wasn't doing anything else other than that. It was a really dark time. I think, you know, I look back and I do think, you know, I had a fantastic, even though I had a fantastic family around me, I still felt very lonely. And it's like, it's, I think that's a big message in, it doesn't matter, you know, it's obviously, it's so important to be supportive, but it's so important to do check in though anyway, even though people seem like they've got a great support network around, they might still be hiding things. And one thing that's really tough is I'm very close to my mum. She's my rock, you know, she's unbelievable. And I didn't even tell her. And so she still, I don't think she ever will, forgive herself for not knowing how I felt at that time, because she just thinks I should have known, I should have done something. And I go, but I hid it from everyone. So how are you to know? How are you to do something?
And even if you did ask me, I didn't tell you.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
But then again, that, you know, that's something that you can't blame on yourself as well, but because it's a very complicated dynamic, isn't it? Like like you said, you felt lonely, and at the same time, you've got these things about, I don't want to disappoint people, or I want these to be proud of me. I don't want to admit a weakness, because, you know, coming back to that one person who's saying those things to you, is that actually you can celebrate your achievement of the best that you could do at that time. In the grand context, it might not be the gold medal, whatever it is, but it's the best you could have done at that time. And that is awesome, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, it is. But, you know, you're very muddled, obviously, at that time. And so I carried on. I was training and kept it to myself. And I had a conversation with someone the week before, and they were like, your tracksuit, it's got your name on it. You just have to swim amazing and win and get this time. And, you know, it's brutal. Swimming, I'm not sure what other qualification processes are like, but swimming, you just have to do it on the day in that one swim. So you slip up once, you're done, really. And so I went to the Olympic trials. I knew I wasn't going to make it, but obviously no one else did. And I remember standing in the call room just before I was ready to walk out for the 100 back, which was the race I was going to make the Olympics in, and just looking around at all the other girls and thinking, I don't care if I come last here, I just need to get out of here.
Wow. And
so I swam completely numb. I felt nothing towards swimming, really. I did the race. I can't remember the race. I can't remember anything, the lead up to it. Actually, no. I remember one thing. I was walking around the pool, the warm-up pool, to go and warm up to get ready for the race. And a coach that I know, that I've known for years, was shouting me. He was like, Lauren. And I just walked past, like I was just blank, numb, nervous, maybe a little bit, probably, but just wasn't with it at all. And then later he came over to me and he said, what's wrong with you? You were just, there was nothing on your face. You didn't even hear me. And he was literally this close to me, you know, really close.
You're so deep inside.
I said, I'm so sorry. I didn't, you know, because that's not me. I'm normally the joker on poolside, and everyone knew that. When I retired, I think the girls were more upset that I wouldn't be there to make them laugh, you know, which is lovely, you know, that's what I want to be. But yeah, it was awful. And so I swam, I touched the wall, I came third or fourth, I can't remember. I think I missed the team by 0.2, something like that, 0.2 of a second. So to have swum like that, even though I felt like that, it's quite, you know,
it's pretty good, right?
Fair enough, you know. And so I got out, and I got asked for an interview, and I just thought, this is just not needed right now. So I just sailed to the interview. I said, you know, it's funny because normally in interviews, and when people don't do well, there's an excuse. My knee hurts, my shoulder hurts, and I just said, I swam awful. And the interview person was like, so what? You know, they were waiting for me to be like some sort of excuse, and I was like, no. I just swam bad. And I wasn't obviously in a mental state then to go, you know, I'm so low and da-da-da-da-da. So I went back, I was completely numb, you know, still. Saw my coach, but we didn't really say anything. He just sort of shrugged his shoulders at me, and that was about it. And so
which isn't the support you need at that time.
No. And then so I went out to see my mum and dad, and that is when I broke down in tears. And you know, just completely let everything out really, and just said, I hate it. I'm quitting. This is it. I'm not doing it. Don't want anything to do with it. And that was big for them because they had no idea, obviously. And so, you know, they knew that I wanted to go to the Olympics, and then all of a sudden I didn't, and they were just a bit like, well, what, you know, what's gone on here? And so that was obviously a big conversation of what's been going on and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, you know, I don't want it to sound like I'm like, I don't care about the Olympics. I'm not bothered about swimming. Obviously, I would have loved to have made the Olympic team. But the biggest upset for me was I loathed the sport I've loved all my life. You know, I'd got to a point where I hated it, and I was so low. And it's really hard when you don't make a team, because everyone on poolside, it's as if someone's died in your family or something like that. They don't know what to say, or they don't want to approach you. And I had to stay because I think my brother was still racing, and obviously I was going to support him. So I was still around for the rest of the week, and no one was speaking because I hadn't made the team. And it's, again, one of the loneliest feelings, because you think, I'm still me. I just didn't make a team, you know, like. And so that's really difficult. And, you know, I was still trying to joke around with people, even though I was the lowest I've ever been in my life. I was going to people that maybe hadn't had a great swim, and I said, well, it could be worse. You could be me, you know, as a joke, trying to make them laugh out of a really dark situation for myself. And so we left Glasgow. That's where the trials were. And I went home.
And just in the context, like all of this you're going through, you're still, I'm thinking, are you kind of 20, 21?
Yeah, 21 I was.
Yeah, so I'm like, I mean, you're describing something incredibly intense, and I mean that's at a very, very young age at the same time, right? That's a huge amount to process. You know, arguably we don't have enough life experience at 21 to even comprehend some of the stuff you were thinking, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And you think, you know, because at 21 you think, oh, I know loads, you know,
I know everything.
Fine. Yeah, like I've got this. And I really didn't have this. And so I went home and I spent 3 months just in my room. Just didn't come out. I didn't want anything to do with swimming. Hated it, you know, hated everything about it. And that was really difficult, not only for me, but obviously my family, and no one wants to see anyone like that. You know, it's hard. And luckily, I had friends from all over the world, coaches, swimmers, everything, saying, you can't finish on that. You know, you're a great swimmer, you know, you can't do that. And since my uncle died, he suddenly passed away. We were all abroad, and he was really fit. He was fantastic. Sports, loved it all. You know, ran, swam a bit. You know, did a bit. Like, he loved it all, and he just went like that. He had a problem with his heart, and he just fell forward, and that was it. He'd gone. And I was out there with my auntie, 2 cousins, mum, dad, and my brother. We were in the mountains in Spain, and it was just day one of the holiday, and it was just so sudden. And we said, ever since that happened, we should celebrate everything. And I think one thing that I've reflected on since then, you know, I've said to you, I didn't celebrate the Commonwealth Games, I didn't celebrate the World Championships. And that was a big thing for me, because I felt like I'd let myself and my family down by not celebrating those times that I really should have. You know, we try and celebrate everything now. If you go out and go for a dog walk and come back and you're still alive and the dog's happy, we're getting the champagne out. You know, it's like we celebrate everything. We try to.
It is celebration. It's also being grateful and thankful as well.
Yes.
You know, there's some very powerful positive emotions there that can, you know, like you said, if you take a habit of celebrating everything, you can see quite quickly how your mindset could become quite positive.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that really got me down in those 3 months. It was like, my Uncle Simon, I know he would have loved for me to make the Olympics, and I felt like I'd let him down big time.
Yeah, that must be so hard.
That was tough. And I had, you know, we're very close to my family now, and my cousins Stan and Spen, they're a great support to me. They're a bit younger than I am, and I remember my cousin Stan sent me a a motivational speech, I think. And it made me cry. I was in my bed and I was crying. And it was basically like, it doesn't matter that you've not done what you set out to do. You've done absolutely phenomenal, you know, and we're dead proud of you. And it was one of those moments that was like, you know, actually, at the end, the world doesn't end because I haven't made the Olympics. I can, you know, I'm still going, sort of thing.
And there's that realization that the people that actually matter to you are proud of you.
Yes.
And actually, they have always been proud of you. You know, yes, of course, you could go on and you go to World Championships, to Commonwealth Games, but they were always proud of you for just getting in the pool and swimming really well, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing. They're just proud.
Yeah, definitely. And Mum used to say to me, I don't care if you come last. I'm proud of you no matter what. Yeah. And you don't, you know, when you're younger, you think, yeah, whatever, you want me to win though. And obviously she wants me to win. But yeah, she does mean it. Like, if I come last, she doesn't care. She just wants me to enjoy it and swim the best that I can.
And I think there's a lesson there for like mum wisdom is really, really like that's what everyone needs. Like, I remember my mum coming to me one day, you know, doing some event, very, very minor event. And she was like, no one is here to judge you. We're just here to support you. And I was kind of like, I wish I never thought of it like that. Like, I thought, you know, and I'm sure from your perspective as well, you were like, no, I'm here to prove to you and make, you know, I want to make you proud, but that's not why people have turned up. They want to turn up because, and it's like, I remember when the Olympics came to London, London was alive with, you know, it was a brilliant, as a spectator. And all the spectators there, like, no one, you know, it was great when people won, but everyone just wanted to celebrate sport and celebrate people doing, frankly, amazing things. It doesn't matter if they came last. They were still way better than I could ever do.
Yeah, no, definitely, you know, and it's keeping it simple like that. You know, one of the best pieces of advice, or not advice, but I used to, you know, I saw Psychologist obviously through afterwards this period. And I was so bothered about what everyone else thought. I put a post up on one of my pages a few weeks ago there was a picture of me at my first competition back, because after this period, there's this fantastic coach that got me back in the water, not to be a world beater, to just love the sport again, because that's all I wanted. I just wanted to love swimming again, because I do. And we achieved that, which is amazing.
Which is amazing. It really is amazing, right? From the point where you're at to get in the pool and say, I still love it. That's amazing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And he got me back in, and I started seeing a psychologist, because my first competition back, I genuinely felt I shouldn't be here. You know, I'm not worthy of being here again. I failed, you know, and I shouldn't be here. And everyone definitely thinks that. And, oh, God, you know, and got really caught up about what everyone else thinks. And I saw this psychologist, and he said, I won't use the words that he exactly used, but he said, Lauren, no one cares. No one cares. And it wasn't no one cares, you know, it's not worth it. He said, obviously your family care and they want you to enjoy it, but they don't care if you come last. Yeah. And if you do come last, people will probably talk about you because where you've been, but then in about 30 seconds, they'll have forgotten and they'll be back thinking about themselves. You know, do it for you if you're going to do it. Don't focus on anybody else, because really they don't care. And they might talk about you for 2 minutes and then they're back to themselves.
It's very liberating, that, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And that did help me massively going forward in anything in life, really. You know, that was a big thing that I always take with me. And if I see someone getting a bit worked up then about other people, I say that exact thing. And it's just about how you think about things and flipping things into a positive. And
it's interesting you talk about that in terms of that kind of like reframing your thoughts. Like, be interested to understand, like, now having gone through all that, like your kind of, what are the kind of mental health tools, tips, techniques, approaches that you use to help yourself, you know, keep yourself, you know, on a level playing field, so to speak? I'm sure you have your low moments, but how do you pick yourself up again? Like, what stuff do you use?
We spoke briefly about it earlier, and you mentioned writing stuff down. I think that's a big thing. My best friend Hannah, she is a triathlete, and she suffers with anxiety, And it's been really interesting because we have really good conversations. I talk about depression. She's never had that. She talks to me about anxiety, and we're really open about these things, and we learn a lot from each other. But it's very similar with anxiety and depression. She writes stuff down, but in diary form, and plans things. Whereas I like to write down how I feel, my feelings, and getting it out on paper. I've got a lot better with I have a select few people now who I go to for certain situations as well. That's a big coping thing for me. For example, my brother Grant, he was the only person that could deal with me when I was racing, in terms of I could go to him and he'd know exactly how to speak to me and what to say and stuff like that. And so for my mum, I'll go to for different things. My dad, my auntie, my cousins, I've found a role for which I sort of use them in a way, in a nice way.
But it's reciprocated as well, isn't it? Like, frankly, that's what relationships are for. It's not about a transaction. It's not about like I owe you or you. It's just like, you're good in this situation. You acknowledge you're good in the situation. So let's continue and reinforce our relationships on that basis.
Yes, definitely. So I have select people that I love to speak to about certain things. I also, again, we've said it's flipping how you think of things, really. A lot of the time, like I said before, the having a goal is fantastic, but a goal can be overwhelming if it's a big one. And so it's focusing on the process. With training, I used to, when I spoke to a psychologist, he used to say, you're not going to be able to fly and do fantastic on every single session you do. But what you can do if you're not feeling it on a certain day is go, I'm not feeling it, but I'm going to focus on this process today. And it's going to be, I'm going to practice 6 kicks off every wall underwater. And so
just breaking it down a little bit.
Breaking it down, exactly, compartmentalizing things. Sometimes if things become overwhelming in your mind and you're thinking about too many things, I like to, these are all things I've practiced, I was rubbish at the start. But compartmentalizing, so I'm going to put that training in that box in my mind and just shut it away for the minute. I'm not at training.
It's not relevant. I don't need it.
I'm at home, I'm with my family, let's just shut that away. And so that was another big thing that helped me with life and overthinking things and stuff like that, really.
And it seems like now, like to this day, so you've transitioned from swimming and are moving on to a more mentoring based approach and organisation, Quigley Sport. Like, it seems like the experiences that you've had and the way that you now approach life as well would be invaluable for the next generation of athletes.
Yeah, I like to think so. I'm doing my best with it for sure. And I think, I don't mean to downplay what psychologists, coaches, just support staff in general do, because obviously in their field and what they do is absolutely phenomenal. And, I've had some great coaches, psychologists and support staff myself. The idea with the mentoring is to come in with a side of empathy.
Yeah.
I wish, I look back and I've always wanted to stay in sport and give back to it as much as it's given me, because it's been phenomenal for me. And so I've always tried to really think about, well, how can I help the best way? And I love to help in the pool, don't get me wrong, that's brilliant. But the next generation of athletes, I always think, I wonder if I'd have had someone. Yes, I had my mum and stuff, but they're very close to the, to home. I wonder if I'd had someone with the empathy that maybe a psychologist can't bring to the table. Yeah. A lot of the time I had to explain to psychologists what it's actually like being a swimmer, for them to then be able to help me with the psychology. Which is
kind of wrong way around. You don't want to go there to train them to then.
Yeah. And it wasn't, it wasn't a problem. Right? They were fantastic. And I understand it's really hard to understand something that you've not done yourself. So it was no problem, but I would, I really want to go in with the angle of the empathy and having, done it and been through a journey with it, and hopefully helping the next guys navigate without having to take as many turns, you know, in their own journey, and you know, maybe helping them bypass certain areas that I can help them with, really.
That's it. And it's asking, like you said at the beginning, like no one really asks you the questions
Yes.
that perhaps they should have done. And sometimes from a, you know, psychologist, psychotherapist, that's fine, but the questions can feel quite sterile.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you said, it's like you're not replacing those, but you're filling a gap which you have not only experienced yourself, but you believe there's an enormous need for, you know, within the sporting community. Like, and it certainly seems, and it surprises me that there's not a sufficient amount of empathy within that already. Like, we talk a lot about, you know, the reasons these psychic podcast, you know, psychic stories exist is to have open and honest conversations. But you know, like 2020, like you assume that everyone's having open and honest conversations about mental health because it's everywhere, especially in lockdown. We'll always talk about mental health, but still, people don't talk. People are struggling to talk, and you know, some people talk, and you know, we thank you hugely for you know, for coming on and talking about your experience to inspire others to be able to do that. But still, people are keeping quiet and are not asking those questions, those really tough questions that they really need to be asked. It sounds like you really found that space for you based on your own experience.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to. And I was just going to say, you know, I can't stress enough, like you've just said, to be open. And it's really easy to say, talk. But seriously, open up, because people think that I'm the only one that's feeling like this. And I guarantee someone's felt exactly the same or something very similar, no matter what it is. It's sport, outside of sport. You know, if you say, I've found, if I say some outrageous things sometimes, not bad, but I'm just really open, especially with my friends and family, and they go, Lauren, and I go, have you not felt that before? And they go, well, yeah, you know, and it's like it is just being open. And I know it's not easy for a lot of people, but it is worth it because you feel so much better. I mean, I do believe everything happens for a reason. Now, whether it does or not doesn't matter, but it helps me get through. And so me not making the Olympic team, it meant that I stepped away from swimming. I got a different perspective. I got to go into the triathlon world a little bit. I moved to Lanzarote. I lived with the Brew family, who were phenomenal. I met so many new people. I've got people in my life, the Bothams, for example, Sarah and Mark and their kids, who I can go to now, and they're like family to me, and they had to support me so much. And you know, I've got these people, and I'm now able, with their help, with the Wilkes' help, to go into this mentoring side now, and to hopefully, if I had have made the Olympics, I would have carried on the story probably of work hard, be successful, work hard, be successful. And I wouldn't have the empathy now to go back into swimming, hopefully in a positive way, to get people to open up and have a little bit of an easier journey, hopefully. No journey's easy.
Have an easier journey
and have that support from hopefully me to help them get to the top and their goals, really.
And effectively, like you said, it's providing them with the support that you wished you'd had.
Yes, definitely.
Not saying that you didn't have support, but there was an element which was missing. It was
it's just a little gap, I think, that hopefully I can fill for people.
One final question, and please say if you don't want to answer it, but I would like to know. So at the moment, you, as a mentor, let's say you are that role model for the younger generation. That is in parallel to you getting some negative comments from another role model. If you were that role model now, which you are, what would you say to the younger generation if they've just won 3 silver medals?
I would say, hey, look what you've just done. Go and celebrate. You know, the percentage of people that can say that they've got 3 silver medals at the Commonwealth Games is very, very small.
Yeah.
You know, the day after I came home, because I came home, we all came home early from the Commonwealth Games, so we didn't get to do the whole closing ceremony and everything. I was watching the gymnastics, and there was a female gymnast who got a silver medal from England, And I was watching and I went, wow, Mum, look, she's just got a silver medal. Isn't that amazing? And my mum turned to me and she went, you did that last week, Lauren. You got 3. And so I'd go from the perspective of me watching her do it, going, wow, that's phenomenal. Make sure I hope she celebrates that. Make sure you celebrate it, because that is unbelievable what you've done. Celebrate, and then let's get back to work and let's turn that into a gold next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And just keep celebrating, and celebrate those really small things as well. Frankly, in some respects, in some of those dark moments, celebrate getting out of bed in the morning, because sometimes that's the most you can do.
At the minute, that's an achievement. Definitely, yeah.
Well, Lauren, honestly, thank you so much for sharing your kind of your story, your journey, and such a fascinating, insightful conversation.
No, seriously, thanks for having me. It's been a real honour to be on Sidekick, and it's hopefully people have learned a little something from it and enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you.
And also wish you really well with Quigley Sport.
Thank you very much.
Cool. And thank you to everyone listening. You can subscribe to us on most major podcast platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Just search for Psychic Community or Psychic Stories and we'll pop up. And please do give us a rating if you like the show. Lauren, thanks again.